So how many of you guys purchased or remember the old Shenghe LINGL BFS reel that came in this box right here? Well, I'm sure a lot of you guys didn't know, but it looks like there's a new model of this that has come out on AliExpress. And of course I have it. Now this reel I've heard about for quite a long time. I knew one was coming, and I'm pretty sure this has probably been out in China for quite a while now, but it just now recently showed up on AliExpress. And as soon as I saw one and kind of glanced over the specs, I immediately clicked the order button. Alright, so if you compare boxes of the new Shenghe LINGL versus the old one, looks like the writing is different on the new box. So if anyone can read Chinese, if you can translate what this says versus what this says, and let us know in the comments. But let's not beat around the bush and get into this. Boom, check that out. Alright, so it looks like you still get a nice velvet bag that is pretty massive, and just some paperwork. But overall, nice looking box with gold foil lettering. But let's pull this reel out. But comes with a little spare piece here. Alright, let's put that off to the side and pull this reel out. Pow! Whoa, look at that. Is that red or orange? I'm going to twist this reel around for you guys. Let you get a good look at it. But yeah, I'm going to study this reel, of course, like I normally do. Remove this little tag here, take some notes, and then we'll get down to it. So the inspection and note taking is over, and I just want to say that this new LINGL 2 actually is packed with a lot of desirable features. And the first one I'm going to show you is this thing right here. This is actually a spare machined aluminum thumb bar. And it comes with 2 screws, so I guess it's pretty easy and straightforward to replace. But that is the first time I've ever seen that in a reel, much less a budget reel from AliExpress. So if you want to see me replace the stock thumb bar with this red thumb bar during the on the water casting impressions video, let me know in the comments section. I think it would probably look pretty sick. Just add a little bit more color to the reel. So yeah, if you want to see me swap this thumb bar out, let me know in the comments. Now speaking of thumb bar, as well as the build quality of this reel, it's actually very, very good. The thumb bar is solid. There's no mush, no slop, no play. Feels solid to the press. And as far as the reel goes, this looks to be an all new design. An entirely new frame and body that's made of carbon fiber, of course. And I did a little bit of searching on AliExpress to see if I could find another reel that uses the same frame and body. but I couldn't find any, so this might be an all new frame and body that's going to be coming out. That, of course, there will be clones of this frame coming out in the future, more than likely. But while the old LINGL pretty much was a direct replica of the DAIWA STEEZ, this new LINGL doesn't appear to be copying any reel that I know of that is mainstream. But maybe, just maybe, it reminds me a lot of the Okuma Hakai as far as the shape goes and some of the styling. But this new LINGL does keep a lot of the design cues of the old LINGL. And here's the old LINGL right here. So that means it's got a two-tone color for the frame and the body, just like the old LINGL. And the cool thing is, if you don't like, a black frame with pearl white side plates and red accents, this new LINGL 2 actually comes with 3 color choices. And I'm going to put a picture of those choices up on the screen for you guys. And as you can see, if you like the styling and color scheme of the old LINGL, you can get it still, as you have the silver with the dark gray or black frame and the gold accents, as well as an option for silver with blue accents. So that's really, really cool, and that should help with sales, giving customers more color options, because not everyone's tastes are the same. But as you can see, out of all 3 of the color choices, I thought that the black, white, and red looked the best, so that's what I got. Now, the only gear ratio it comes in is 7.3 to 1. So just like the old model, you do get a carbon fiber handle. But with the new model, you get a much bigger, more functional, in my opinion, raw carbon fiber drag star. Hopefully you guys can see that. Very much like the Zion drag star of the DAIWAs. And of course, just like the old reel, the LINGL 2 comes with the slim metal knobs. And the knob tolerance on my reel is much better than the old one. And the finish on the aluminum knobs is a nice smooth glossy finish versus a more, I guess, rough textured finish of the previous knobs. Now, just like the old reel, you have a lot of colored metal trim pieces like the nut retainer. You got this aluminum trim piece around the gearbox. It's colored red, but it's got some carbon fiber inserts. Spool tension, it's got a nice couple of red bands around it. Now, the spool tension doesn't click, just like the old one. You got your red pieces here that support the level wind. You got the nice red trim piece for the brake dial that's got nice clear numbers. And this is, of course, aluminum. And the brake dial does have a nice quality, positive feel that clicks, of course. And just like the old reel, the new LINGL comes with this massive triangle shaped line guide that's bigger at the opening and tapers off towards the front. And as you can see, they pushed it out pretty much as far as it'll go, as it's sticking out way past the top of the frame. And of course, the new LINGL has a clicking drag. Now, the old one had a clicking drag as well, but they sound completely different. The clicking drag on the new reel is a lot louder and has a higher pitch, in my opinion. But one thing I'll tell you is that turning the handle on the new reel, it does feel smoother, and it feels like the tolerances are definitely tighter on this new reel, as they should be. Now, just like the old reel, the price of this new LINGL is around $75. So it's pretty much in line with its current competition, which could be like the Black Knight 2 or Dark Wolf Ultra and various clones that use those same frames, as well as the KASTKING Valiant Eagle 2, but it's also significantly cheaper than the Haibo Arise Air. And with that being said, let's compare this reel size-wise to the old reel as well as its competition. Now, compared to the old model, this new lingle is significantly smaller in pretty much every dimension, with probably the exception of length. Now, I know it's going to be hard to, I guess, see with the white side plates blending in with the white background, but the new lingle is definitely smaller than the old model. And it definitely palms a lot smaller, because not only is the side plate smaller in surface area, the new reel is actually significantly lower than the old model as well. So this reel is extremely comfortable to palm. As you can see, it's got that recessed area in the top plate where your thumb rests, and it is a very, very comfortable reel to palm. Now let's compare it to some competition. Now the first reel we're going to compare it to is going to be the Black Knight 2. So of course this would mean this is the size difference between the Lingle 2 and all the variants that use the same frame and body as the Black Knight 2, like the Dark Wolf Ultra, the Micro Monster, the Acura Solo King, etc, etc. And it looks like the Black Knight 2 frame is a little bit smaller, a little bit thinner, probably due to the fact that this brake dial is protruding out, and maybe a little bit shorter. But height wise, they look very similar. Maybe the Lingle 2 actually looks a little bit lower. What do you guys think? So next up is going to be the Valiant Eagle 2 from KASTKING. And yeah, the Valiant Eagle to me looks a little bit smaller from this perspective. Now let's switch sides. And it still looks smaller, but once again, this could be a trick of the fact that the side plates blend in with the background on the Lingle 2. Height wise, they look very, very similar. Maybe the Valiant Eagle 2 is a little bit lower. But yeah, this definitely would be considered competition for the new lingle. Alright, so next up is going to be the HIMANO Arise Air. And the Arise Air is not what I would consider to be a small reel, but it looks like the width is going to be similar for both reels. But I thought the Arise Air would look much, much bigger. I don't know, what do you guys think? Height wise, they look pretty similar. Maybe the Lingle 2 is a little bit lower, but the Lingle palms just a little bit smaller. But yeah, that's what it looks like compared to the HIMANO Arise Air. Now the last reel I'm going to compare it with is going to be the only JDM reel that I'm going to compare size wise. That's going to be DAIWA's Alpha's Air. And they are very similar. The Alphas may be a little bit thinner, once again due to the protruding brake dial of the Lingle 2, but they're very similar height wise as well. Maybe the Lingle is a little bit lower. So yeah, this new Lingle 2 is definitely a step up above the old reel as far as size, palming comfort, and weight. And of course, speaking on weight, we are going to pull the scales out and get some hard numbers. So according to Shenghe, the Lingle 2 is supposed to come in at about 129 grams. And if that's true, the reel is going to be competing to be the lightest baitcaster in the world. So let's see if that's true. Now 129 grams equates to about 4.5 ounces. But the first thing we're going to do is we're going to weigh the old reel, which comes in at 5.55 ounces. And then we're going to weigh some of its competition, like the HIMANO Arise Air, which comes in at 4.85 ounces. And then the Black Knight 2, which comes in a little bit lighter at 4.81 ounces. And then we have the KASTKING Valiant Eagle 2, coming in at 4.66 ounces. So now it's time for the Lingle 2, and it's coming in at also 4.66 0.64 ounces. So if we convert this over to grams, comes in a little bit heavy at 131.5 grams. So out of all the reels that I've weighed, the lightest still is going to be the KASTKING Kestrel Elite, which I believe came in at something like 4.49 grams. So that's still the king as far as weight goes. But that number could be dethroned with the next reel I'm going to unbox, which will be coming up soon. Alright, so let's get into the spool and the brakes, because they are all new. So now that we see that the new reel lost a good ounce over the old reel in overall weight, let's see if the spool lost any weight. Now the old LINGL, which I have here, is what I would consider to be the last of the previous generation of AliExpress BFS reels. And I say that because I think this is probably the last reel that I know of that came out with the bigger 34mm spool. And pretty much everything after that went really tiny as far as spool diameter goes. But here's the spool of the old LINGL. It's very light, but it's also very large in diameter. And more importantly, here are the brakes of the old LINGL, which are a direct copy of Shimano's mighty finesse tune brake system, which is a dynamic magnetic system. And these brakes actually work really well, as the old LINGL was an excellent caster even with lighter lures, and I've tested it down to about 1.4 or 1.5 grams, and it handled those light weights really easily with the right rod and line. Alright, so the old spool with its spool bearing comes in at 7.32 grams, and without the bearing I believe it weighed in at like 6.14 grams if I'm reading my spool weight list correctly. So at the time it was actually one of the lighter spools on the bait finesse market. So now let's check out the new reel, and it looks like it opens similarly. Let's check out the new spool and new brakes. And pow! The new LINGL has reverted to the static mag track style system. Now there's nothing wrong with that, but in my opinion that's a downgrade over the FTB copy of the old reel. But there's something that I didn't know that it came with. It looks like the new reel comes with orange seal hybrid ceramic bearings. I don't think I read that in the literature. But let's check out the new spool. Yep, the spool bearing also comes with what appears to be an orange seal hybrid ceramic bearing. We're going to have to test a free spool on this here in a second, but the new spool is supposed to be only 30mm in diameter, so compared to the old spool you can see the huge size difference. So this should equate to a big weight loss. Alright, moment of truth. With its tiny spool bearing, the new spool comes in at 5.94 grams. Now keep in mind this spool bearing is bigger, but that's a substantial weight loss of at least a gram in my estimation. But of course, I'm gonna pull that spool bearing off and get a true rotational weight on this spool. Okay, so as you can see, the tiny spool bearing is off. Now, whether I would consider this to be a micro bearing, I guess that would be debatable. But as you can see, the spool design is a short spool shaft that is made of aluminum. So let's see what it weighs now. About 5 grams on the dot. So what does that mean for the Shenghe LINGL 2? That means in the current hierarchy of bait finesse spool weights, there are only 2 reels that have lighter spools than this, and that's going to be the KASTKING Kestrel Elite as well as the Valiant Eagle 2, coming in at about 4.5 grams. So that makes this spool lighter than any of the current JDM offerings. I think the current lightest spool for a JDM BFS reel is the SS Air TW, coming in at 5.6 grams. And the next lightest spool would be the Dark Wolf Ultra, coming in at 5.3 grams, as well as the Arise Air, which is coming in at about 5.3 grams. So while this spool is not breaking any new ground as far as weight goes, it is one of the very lightest bait finesse spools on the market today for a stock reel. And let's not forget that it does come with these orange seal, what I assume to be hybrid ceramic spool bearings as stock. So just a quick update before we get to my final initial thoughts. I went on the store website for this reel, and yes, these spool bearings are ceramic hybrids. And what I've done was I've put a piece of tape on the black spool because there's no writing on it. And I'm going to show you the free spool time on this reel, and that's with the spool tension set to just minimize side-to-side play. The brakes turn all the way to the minimum position, and incidentally, this brake system has a total of 30 clicks for a total of 31 total settings. And let me show you the free spool time on this Shenghe LINGL 2. Now you can definitely hear the ceramic hybrid bearings buzzing, though they're not quite as loud as some aftermarket ceramic hybrid bearings I've tested. And it's probably because there was a lot of grease on the spool shaft that might have gotten into the spool bearing that was actually on the spool itself. But yeah, that's just another bonus feature of this reel that just increases its overall value for money. Okay guys, so time to go over my final initial thoughts on this new Shenghe LINGL 2. And the best way to sum it up is that I got a lot more reel than I thought I was going to be getting. Now first of all, this reel is built extremely well. Now despite it being so light, it feels very, very solid. It feels noticeably better built than my Black Knight 2 and my Dark Wolf Ultra. And it's also smoother and more refined, and it feels like the tolerances are tighter than the previous LINGL. And FYI, according to the website, they're claiming this reel has smaller micro module type gears. And of course it comes with all the current fashionable desired features of today's bait finesse reels. You got your small finesse type knobs, you got your tapered line guide, you got your clicking drag, it's small, lightweight, and you have the super lightweight, fashionable, small diameter, shallow spool. I mean, the only thing that would make this reel a 10 out of 10 would be a nice, precise spool tension clicker, but I guess we can't have it all. And then when you throw in the fact that it comes with the hybrid ceramic smaller spool bearings, an option of 3 color schemes, and it comes with a machined aluminum spare thumb bar, I mean, that makes the value of this reel just skyrocket over its competition. Now the only downgrade to this reel from the previous reel and some of its competition is the fact that they went with the static MagTrax brakes, and I think that a lot of these Chinese companies are probably going to start going away from the imitation FTB style brakes due to the problems they have with the left-handed models. They seem to be too lazy to fix the problems for the left-handed reels that are sporting that type of brake system. But as long as the brakes are strong enough, that's going to be the next question, then this reel appears to be a hit. All this for about $70 to $75. And I'm going to leave a link in the description on what store I got this from, so you can buy one if you want. So of course the next step is to spool this reel up with some line and do some casting. And once again, leave in the comment section if you want me to swap out the thumb bar for this spare aluminum machined thumb bar. And if I get enough comments, I'll do it. So there we go, guys. I'm really pleasantly surprised with the new Shenghe LINGL 2, and be on the lookout for the casting video in a few days. Alright guys, thanks a lot.